Ready and action.
We're going to be going into the missile house. This is the start of the tour. No one's going to get lost on the ship as long as you stay relatively close to the yellow lines. That's a regular tour route. Can't go wrong. Yellow brick road. Missile house housed 40 missiles. This is also where the one sailor passed away. Unfortunately, as you go through, it's kind of hard to imagine it with all the missiles that were in there and all the mechanisms that work. But the sailor was in the back of the missile house, and one of the hydraulic lines had ruptured. And unfortunately, he was injected with the hydraulic fluid, and with all the noise of the machinery going, no one could hear him scream. And so he subsequently died in there. It was just, sometimes accidents happen. Just watch your step as you're going in. That's the warhead handling room. That was also where the fins, as you can see, the fins were actually mounted onto the missiles before they went out the doors and were launched off the turret. As you're going through, you might be down on the mess deck or down below decks. You can hear the when somebody's walking up here. And there's been numerous times that groups have been here, I've been here, and as you're walking through, you hear that, and it transmits all the way through the hull so you can hear it. And we're the only ones on board. Like I say, there's so much mechanisms that worked in here. These racks, these gray racks, actually rotated in unison, and they would load the missiles, taking them off these rails using this assembly, putting them on these racks, mount up with those rails. As you see, it's a big process to get one of these 35-foot long missiles out the pointy end. Again, this sardine can set up. This is where all the missiles were stored. And they were, as we call it in the military, special weapons capable. Fortunately, I can't shut the lights off in here. That's just one of those negative spots in here. They're all hardwired into the system. Again, this was what you call it, the defensive weapon of the fleet. You know, back in the day when there was battleships, the battleship was the centerpiece of cruisers, destroyers, so forth. Well, nowadays it's aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, so forth. And this primary reason why you'd even have all these missiles was to knock down incoming Soviet aircraft. Also, this was all classified. I talked to a former executive officer who was on here for 3 years. He was never in here. He didn't have the need to be in here, so you don't come in here. And so there's only 24 people who are authorized in here at any given time. You can never even come in here by yourself. Even if you were authorized to be in here, you had to have 2 people at all times, and it was called two-band integrity. That way, one person couldn't monkey with anything. You always had somebody watching over your shoulder. It's just part of classification. As you mentioned before, back when the ship, before the missiles were on, she was CL-92. She had 2 catapults back here with seaplanes on them. One of the pilots from one of the seaplanes took it out on a Thanksgiving jaunt, and it crashed and was never seen again. So that's one of the other deaths that were attributed to the ship. Even something as simple as going for a joyride.
Hey, Chief. Chief.
Chief. down into the ship. Back aft is the far end of the ship. That's the movie room. That was the hangar deck for the seaplanes back there. I'll shut these lights off in the passageway when we get to that point. Again, if you find yourself disoriented, as long as you're on this main deck, this is considered Broadway. That's what we always called it. Unlike the Sullivans, where you only have, you have to come up on the main deck from coming from the bow, like I explained earlier, to go to the stern of the ship. Well, this one you can move internally from one end to the other. Different memorial rooms. Originally, these memorial rooms, although they're dedicated to something now, they were the living spaces, eating spaces of the crew. And whether you want to believe paranormal or not, the crews lived in these sardine cans for extended periods of their lives. And as I've mentioned before to one of the other groups, you know, sailors, even myself, when I was on board ship, all you want to do is get off. Well, as soon as you get off, all you think about is going back. So you figure somebody lives on one of these things for as long as they did, it's kind of hard not to leave a piece of yourself behind, you know, whether you want to call that paranormal or not. I know that's the way it is. I'll head forward. Crews Galley, this is where all the enlisted food was cooked for the crew. We still use it, it still works. We have scouts who sleep on board on the weekends during the season. This is where we prepare their food. We've got a lot of little rooms like these that are for different memorials. This is for the Korean War. And we have one a little farther forward for Vietnam, and they're all scattered throughout the ship like this. But the lights will be off in there. That was the sleeping compartment back in the day. When the ship was first put into commission, it had a crew of about 750 men. And you can imagine how it feels right now with just 20 people. Well, when there were 750, you're always, running into each other. Well, when the ship was taken out of commission and then overhauled and refitted in 1960, that's when they added the missiles, they added more structure to the ship, and the crew literally doubled in size. You had a crew of up to 1,400 men, average was about 12. So there again, you'd see a lot of people, and the ship was always alive, 24/7. You worked a 12 on, 12 off shift, 7 days a week. So again, it's kind of hard not to imagine somebody didn't leave something behind. It's one of the main sleeping compartments. This is more like what sailors and Marines, men and women alike, sleep in today. These sailors have a really bad sense of humor. This is considered a coffin locker. Right? That's just the way we are. Anyway, nowadays, instead of being open like this, it's three-sided, and you have a privacy curtain. That's your world. What goes on in there is your business, no one else's. So, but there again, this is a little more updated, or this is the way it was in the 1970s when the ship was decommissioned. This is what it used to always be like. That's what sailors slept on. Again, different memorial room for Vietnam. Officers' wardroom. This is where the officers ate. They ate separately from the enlisted men. This was their lounge area. And even a chief petty officer like myself, I would not be allowed in here unless I was actually invited in for whatever specific reason. Normally it would only be to drop a message off or pick something up or something along those lines. I wouldn't just be allowed to hang out here. That's not one of those things you do. Where the enlisted guys like me, we'd eat off of stainless steel trays with ceramic coffee cups. Officers ate on silver in China. That's like I say, that's what a 4-year degree will do for you. Big stream was nice. This is a memorial room to the Little Rock. This is in work. This is not totally complete yet, but this was also another sleeping compartment. Entrance to the forward fire room, actually the boiler room, is through this compartment here. That'll eventually be open to the public. But when you say, as you walk around the ship, you can see sailors between the office spaces and sleeping compartments and eating spaces. Every nook and cranny was taken, you know. This is the Marine Corps compartment. This was dedicated to the Marines that were on board, not just the Marines on board, but the U.S. Marine Corps in itself. There was, on average, about 50 Marines, but it would expand to well over 150 when the Admiral came on board. And their primary job was to guard all the special areas, any of the classified areas, where it was the missile house. No one went in there because there was always a Marine with a sidearm to ensure that you didn't unless you had purpose to be in there. Also, they would guard any of the dignitaries on board. They would guard the Admiral. And I want to see it, open my mouth and insert both my feet because it might be a Marine who would end up watching this, but reality is they would be always cognizant of where they were on board the ship. And any time that there was an emergency, somebody opened up a space that would set off an alarm, like say in a classified area, they would call an alert away. Marines, actually the next compartment we're going to be crossing into, had their armory, they had their weapons in there, and they were the only ones who were allowed to strike another crew member. If you tried to impede their progress to get from point A to point B, they were allowed to lay you out. And I saw it more than once. Because sailors, like I say, we're a bunch of smart asses that, you know, I'll get in the way. Well, you don't do that. These guys are playing for real, and that's their primary job, is to protect this ship. And you go playing a game like that, they tend to get pissed. And so after you wake up in the brig, then they take you up to go see the skipper. So, and you lose a stripe or two. So that's just one of those things. All right. This was just basically an office space for the Marines. Again, their armory was in there. Again, this is medical. This is medical deck. Surgeries. I just can't imagine somebody trying to take someone's appendix out while the ship was rocking. I think that would be a little bit something I wouldn't be part of, but there again. You have other sleeping compartments down below. Feel free to roam down there. Again, recovery area, if somebody came down with the flu or whatever, had to be quarantined away from the rest of the crew, that's where they would be parked at. And of course, the ship, it's a city at sea. If you have a medical, you got to have a dental. And actually, my boss was a former crew member on here. He still has dental work he had done in the 70s in that chair. So, but there again, I just can't imagine the dentist drilling in my mouth while the ship was rocking and rolling. That doesn't sound like fun to me. I'm not going to take you down there, but it's open to you. Definitely feel free to go down there. This another berthing compartment. That's also where the brig is, where the ship's jail is. And so there's a couple of inmates already in there. So don't be alarmed. to say, different memorial room, British Armed Forces room. It's kind of, that was another sleeping compartment, and actually the current Secretary of the Navy, Ray Mavis, was a former crew member on here, and that was where he slept. He was here 2 years ago, and he was kind of miffed that it was a memorial room to the Polish Armed Forces instead of a memorial room to him. So, but that's neither here nor there. But that to me is one of the more sad compartments, because the individuals who set it up, they're all gone now. They were World War II partisans, fought against the Nazis, and unfortunately they're all gone now. So now we're just doubling back. It's heading back. All right. To head back to the back end of the ship, you just follow the same passageway all the way back the way we came. We just basically made a big loop. Now we're going to go up and out. Okay. Air. All right, we're on the main deck. 6-inch naval guns up there. There's 24 men that would be crammed into that thing. So when you go in there, you'll notice how tight it is. We're going to go back. Again, if you feel like you're turned around, just follow the yellow line. Alright, we'll come in here. This is Admirals Quarters. The Admiral and the commanding officer of the ship were the only ones who had 2 sleeping areas. He had one cabin that was in port and one that was at sea. The one that was at sea is a much smaller cabin, and that's right off the bridge. When you get up there, you just take the ladder well up. You just keep going up. You'll go up to the bridge, the pilot house, that's where the ship's wheel is. And the Admiral...
This ladder right here?
Yep. You take that one up, then there's another one, and then there's another one on top of that one. So there's a lot more to see above. I'm not going to take you all the way up there. Feel free to roam up there at your leisure.
Okay.
But there again, this is pretty much it. And this was where the Admiral controlled the whole battle fleet from this space. He slept in the compartment right there while he was in port. The ship was a flagship, so it had, like I say, it had a 2-star Admiral, up to a 3-star sometimes. Always had dignitaries on this ship. It was always spit and polish. So you had Princess Grace was on here, Harry Truman, just various numbers of dignitaries. And that's basically it. You know, up until about the last 2 years, everybody always focused their attention on the Sullivans, not the Little Rock. Honestly, there was a lot of, all of us who have worked here for any length of time, well, we've all heard things. The ship makes noise. Honestly, when the ship doesn't make noise, you start kind of worrying more than anything. But it's kind of odd when you're walking through the ship, you hear a hum from a transformer. Back when the ship was alive, you'd hear steam going through pipes and all that kind of stuff. So when it's quiet like this, there's been numerous times you can hear what I would call conversations going on. One of the areas that of interest is directly below us, where the trophy case is, just for your own benefit. I don't want to call that a hot spot by any stretch, but I know that standing there in the middle of the night, I'm the only one on board. It's like being back on board ship, when on a live ship, because you'd hear conversations, you know, in another compartment or a next deck, up or down, and you ignore it because it has nothing to do with you. And so there are numerous times you're walking through and it's like, wait a minute, I'm here by myself. Did somebody just say something? And stand there and it's like, no, wait a minute. You know you hear something, but you can't place your finger on which direction or who it is or anything like that, or specific words. But that's all the time, you know. But there again, I have some people who have worked here that have never had an experience, not one. Never heard anything, never seen anything, and they don't believe in any of the hooey anyway. You know, that kind of attitude. But me personally, like I say, whether you want to call it paranormal or not.
I think you never watched that before.